is Paul Welch, the CEO of Nostra Terra Oil and Gas, following an announcement last week about their partner regarding the Fouke 3 well, the oil field there, approving and agreeing to drill to a drill location. So, Paul, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on today.
It's good to be catching up and talking about this. So just tell us a little bit about this location, how it was chosen, any comments that your partners had or involvement they'll have going forward in the well.
Right. So our partners are going to have a lot of involvement going forward. The majority of the technical work that was done by our team. So we did the work, we interpreted the seismic, mapped it out, picked the location, then we proposed the location to our partner in a meeting about 10 days ago now. Pluses or minuses, moving it left, right, where we wanted to move it, and why we liked the location we selected. And they came on board. They agreed with it. They liked the idea. They liked the location. And so they essentially approved it. Now, in the Fouke area, we are 1/3, they are 2/3, and they are also the operator. So going forward from here, it's really going to be their operation that we will support. Both technically, commercially, wherever it may be. So you'll hear a lot more from them via us moving forward. So they're in the driver's seat because they have the 2/3 majority and they're the operator. Okay. They're a great company to work with. Really like work with them. It wasn't something that I think had originally considered doing. They really felt that was a little bit smaller area than we felt. And so based on the mapping and then the performance of the wells, they agreed that, now's the time to go and look for a Fouke 3.
Well, that's interesting you mentioned that, because I was going to ask who leads the way on this. With them being 2/3, one would expect that maybe that they would be leading you, but it seems that you've been proposing this and they're following. Yeah,
well, we've technically proposed it. Again, we operate all the wells in the area. They have the Fouke, 1 and 2 wells that they operate, but we operate everything else around it, so we know the area pretty well. Okay. We've seen from the performance of the wells that we felt there's an area to the north that was supporting them. These wells, the 2 Fouke wells, have been producing at 100 barrels a day combined, flat since May of last year. So May of 2004 until today, we're flat at 100 barrels a day, no decline, which is incredible. So that led us to believe that there's a larger resource out there that they're pulling from. And so that's when we started to map it and look at it in detail, pull up the seismic, and really dug into it deep. And we determined that definitely there's something to the north. Now, there's the Fouke 3, and then we potentially could see the Fouke 4. So, we're interested and excited about the Fouke 3 and potentially a Fouke 4 for the reasons that we mentioned. These wells coming in at 120 barrels a day. It's a fantastic area. However, given that if the Fouke 3 is successful, then there's secondary recovery potential here. So the original Fouke 1, 2, and let's call it 3 wells will produce about half of what is available to be produced. The second half will come from an enhanced recovery scheme. And once we have the Fouke 3 down, then we can assess that. And it's more likely than not that we would then include or install an improved or enhanced recovery scheme there because we have it in the Pine Mills field already. So it's just a matter of expanding it. And so that way we can then double the amount of reserves these individual wells produce. So there's a lot more involved in just the Fouke 3 well itself. It's the Fouke 3 plus any upside associated with enhanced recovery. So it's an important well for the company.
And that would, in theory, increase the field life, or the well life, not the actual barrels per day, because that's capped at 124, isn't it?
Right. The cap rate is 124. It'll just allow us to produce that at it'll allow us to produce the well much longer. So there'll be more energy put in the reservoir. We'll produce enough. At the moment, the Fouke wells, the 1 and 2 wells, produce very little oil. So very little water. Essentially no water. When you then put in an enhanced recovery scheme, then the wells will produce both oil and water primarily, combined. And so you'll get a longer period of time, but it won't be at such a high oil rate. It'll be at a high fluid rate, but not necessarily a higher oil rate. But you get a lot more out of it. And again, the great thing about Fouke 1, Fouke 2, and potentially Fouke 3 on primary is that our operating costs are less than $10 a barrel. I think at the moment we're running somewhere between 3 and 4. So given the crazy oil price environment that we're in, which I guess we'll talk about here in a second, this is still a piece of business we'll do almost at any price, because as the oil price drops, people stop doing things in the field. service company costs are reduced, and so then we can drill this well potentially at a cheaper rate. But again, because our operating costs are so low, this well should be drilled at any oil price environment.
That's good to hear. That's very good to hear. And you mentioned in the RNS that planning for this new well has commenced. A team have been in the field looking at potential surface drilling locations. You say you look forward to working with your partner to get this drilled as soon as practically possible. So I guess the obvious question is, when is practically possible?
Yeah, that'll depend on a number of things. Rig availability, paramount. That we're looking at a Q3 spud. That's what we're kind of working with our partner sometime in Q3. That's ideal. Ideal for us. We have to get the surface location built, get at least that sort of thing. So in Texas, in the U.S., not necessarily in Texas, the minerals are severed from the surface. So the mineral owners are one group, and then the surface owners are another. So you have to get the permission of the landowners to go in and create a location. You have to lease that land up. So that takes a little bit of time. And that's what's underway at the moment. So we're talking to landowners about where we can put this location, what makes sense for us. Sometimes the service location that we picked from a technical perspective could be in the middle of somebody's house or in a pond or something, in an area that's not advantageous. And so we're going out there and staking it and saying, okay, is there a better location? We drill a little bit directional to get to it. So there's a lot of restrictions on where we can put this location, but generally, we're in oil field country. It's essentially undeveloped farmland and ranch land, so it shouldn't be too big of a task to get it. But that's what we're doing at the moment. It's just leasing that land, picking the right location, and determining, if this is the surface location and the bottom location is here. Do we have to drill directionally? What's that going to look like? Okay. And all that feeds into the cost. So that's the process we're undergoing at the moment.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good to hear. So Q3, you'd hope to actually start. When you say, start drilling effectively.
Start drilling. I mean, all the other stuff happens between now and the time we spud the well. So, when we drill the wells, called the spud. And so that's what all the prep work to the spud date is what we're undertaking.
Okay, yeah. Good. Well, I'm looking forward to following indeed how that prep work goes. Do you intend to fund the drilling of the well? Because about $1 million, I think you said before, so your cost would be effectively circa $300,000 US there. Do you intend to fund that through a placing, or would you make use of that bank drawdown facility?
Ideally, we'd make use of it through a drawdown facility. I mean, again, it'll depend on the redetermination that's upcoming at the moment. At the moment, we're maxed on our facility. The facility is due to be redetermined in May. Our production is up about 40% from the last time they did the redetermination. The prices are down probably 10% or so, maybe 15% from that original price tag they used. So that delta between the two, increased production and the decreased price is hopefully what we'll capture in an increased credit line. And so potentially we'll drill it from, a combination of internal cash and credit. We don't want to go back to the market to raise equity currently, especially at the current share price. So it'll be a combination of that. We'll use internal funding or bank debt, we think, to get this one over the line.
Good. I just want to go over the production and the sort of numbers if I can. I always like to get an update on this when we speak. And I watched a presentation you did, I think it was last week on the Engage platform, where I think you actually said the break-even costs. And I've sort of worked that with the latest WTI price around 60. So at Pine Mills, currently doing 90 barrels of oil per day. So I make that sort of $26 per barrel net. Okay. Then we've got Fouke and West Texas, 40 barrels of oil per day, $42 net. I've got that. So I've taken sort of an average of that, saying $30.50 net with a total there of 130 barrels. So that gives you free cash flow of about $1.45 million a year.
I think that's about right. I mean, I think the difference there is the West Texas number and the Fouke number are very different. So in West Texas, our operating costs are low. We're making about 50. So our operating costs are about $20 a barrel. Whereas in the Fouke area, our operating costs are between $5 and $10. So I don't know how you did your math. We're very close to that number that you suggest. But ideally, we're finishing up the phase 2 workovers, this next week, we hope. And so, the 90 in Pine Mills will go up to somewhere closer to 110, 120. And that's what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
And then, but your margins are correct. So hopefully we'll surpass your estimates there, but you're in the ballpark.
Yeah, I think it's about right. I sort of averaged out with Fouke and
Yeah, they're
West
just
Texas.
it's kind of like chalk and cheese. I mean, they're very different, because
Yeah,
West Texas are kind of a low rate but long life well,
yeah,
whereas
sure,
the Fouke wells are high rate and super low cost. So
exactly.
it's fantastic.
And I think you mentioned on that presentation as well that the extra Pine Mill wells that would add between 10 and 45 barrels of oil per day, and that was going to be happening. That's the finishing of that workover program in about 2 weeks. So you've got about a week. How's that been going?
We've got about a week to go, I would say, on that. It's gone well. The only slight change is that there is a big weather front that came through. I don't know if you've seen the news, and so we had a lot of rain, more rain than we typically get. And so from about Wednesday or Thursday of last week until today, part of the field was underwater, so it was flooded. Now, serendipity, we had raised up the production. So when we did these last workovers, we knew this was an issue and it had been a problem in the past. So what we did is we built platforms, and I think I've shown some pictures of those. We built platforms and we set all the units and all the power above the water. So the field is operating. So we're still producing. However, we can't get any rigs in there to do any work. So we moved the rig out, I think on Tuesday, and then on Thursday, the area was under like 4 feet of water, 5 feet of water. So we got lucky there, or the rig would have been stuck. So the rig is out of the field at the moment. The rig should be back in the field tomorrow when the water subsides. So we're probably 3 or 4 days delayed, but again, we should finish it up by the end of next week. And then all of the workovers will be completed, and then we'll just be in a steady state of just running these wells and make sure we hit those target numbers that we shot for when we started the program.
Sure. And I make that then about, when that comes online in you say a week or two's time, about 1.5 million to 2 million per year effectively of free cash flow.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that number. Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, it'll vary a little bit on what the average oil price is, but you're spot on that number. Correct.
Okay, good. And then, of course, we've got Fouke 3. That adds, could add an additional 124, which is 40 for NTOG. Okay. So that gives you, that's the upside as well. Potentially 215 barrels of oil per day. So, and that's going to come later in the year, as we talked about. So, I mean, how are you feeling, first of all, Paul? Since, I don't know how long you've been in the role for. It's about a year or not quite a year yet, but a lot.
Yeah, we're coming up on a year. I took over in May of last year. We're coming up on a year. I feel pretty good. I mean, again, the first few months were pretty bumpy. We had to fix a number of issues. Now, the way I would think about it at the moment is we built the company now into a profitable base. So everything we're doing in Pine Mills and in West Texas is we're making money. We're profitable even at current oil prices. And so we have a profitable base from which we can grow. And so we can grow, through additional workovers, through behind pipe potential, through the Fouke, 3, potentially the Fouke 4, water floods there, and then some inorganic activity, that we may come across in our normal course of business. So I actually really feel pretty good about it because, it's been a long road, but I think we're at the end of it. And so at the end of it's profitability, and that's where we are.
Good. And given the fact that you are quite profitable at a pretty low oil price there, I mean, would you be looking at expanding M&A, other opportunities, either at home or globally?
Yeah, well, we're definitely looking for opportunities. I think now that we've built a profitable base, again, ideally, we just kind of organically spread the footprint around, starting in Texas, East and West Texas. The West Texas assets that we got rid of a portion of them. The one we kept is remarkably profitable. So, I mean, again, that's an area that I think we see additional potential. So I think we're going to, focus East and West Texas. And when I say West Texas, I mean the conventional West Texas, not horizontal wells, that sort of thing. Just the conventional parts of the Permian that we see are as interesting. The other parts of the Permian, which are super interesting to other people, really aren't something for us because they're very much a production business where it's almost like a factory. And those are challenging, I think, to make money at any prices below kind of $60 a barrel, unless you're in the sweet spots there, and we're not. So that's probably not an area we're going to go into. But there's other parts of the Permian, which is a huge area that we think have potential for more from a conventional standpoint, which is what we do. So yeah, there's opportunities there. There's opportunities in East Texas. The change in oil price and the abrupt change in the oil price may force some people to sell something that they probably would have held on to in a higher price environment. So that may be an opportunity for us as well. So we're keeping our eyes out. We're going to be opportunistic. Again, if we do anything, it'll be relatively small. But we need to look at both organic and inorganic things, because as I've said multiple times in the past, is that we need to get this company at 5,000 barrels a day, and we can't do that only relying on pine mills. We have to look at other opportunities as well.
Yeah, that 5,000, that's a big ambitious target, but
it is. Yeah, but we need something to shoot for. I mean, again, if you don't have a target, you don't know where you're going. So that's the target we set at the board level. That's something that it's on my shoulders to deliver. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but it should happen over the next 3 to 5 years. That's our target.
Good. And just finally, do you want to make a comment on the turmoil that the market saw given the tariffs there from our man Trump over there? I guess being a US operator, that doesn't really affect you in that sense, apart from the pain you feel of liquidity events in the market. Yeah.
So, I mean, again, for us, some of the things will affect us, like tariffs on steel and other products will definitely hit us. Minorly amount, because a lot of domestically produced steel as well. I think generally we just like some stability. Who knows? The oil price is down, but again, there's other countermeasures. Like I think he's going to be tougher on Venezuela and Iran than the previous administration was. So that may counterbalance some of the weakness we see in the price. I think the biggest concern is just the uncertainty. People don't really know what to do. If you know what the future looks like, then you can plan for it. If you have no idea, it makes it a challenge. And I think kind of given the fact that these tariffs have just been implemented, people don't know exactly what to expect, and whether it's just, in a negotiation ploy or they're there to stay. I don't know. I've heard both answers, so I don't know. But for us, again, we're onshore, we're profitable, we can make money at the current prices. It's not like it doesn't affect us, but given where we're located, it doesn't affect us as dramatically as other businesses would. It'd be nice if it calmed down, but I don't think that's his MO. So we'll see.
We'll see. It's nonetheless exciting. But Paul Welch, the CEO of Nostra Terra Oil and Gas, thank you very much as always for your time.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter, and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.